Hello, I'm Justice Jennifer Brunner of the Ohio Supreme Court, and you're here for a special edition of Achieving Justice. This is a podcast that I run for my campaign for Chief Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court, and I'm so pleased to have today with me Erica Voorhees, who is a candidate for the Ninth District Court of Appeals in Ohio. That's an intermediate level court in the state court system, and this covers the counties of Summit, Medina, Wayne and Lorain counties, portions of those. Erica, welcome. Glad to have you here. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello, and thank you for inviting me to be on your program here. This is a lovely idea. I am Erica Voorhees. I am one of your candidates for the Ninth District Court of Appeals judge seats. I am currently a magistrate at the Summit County Court of Common Pleas General Division. I have been there since 2019 when the judge that I work with was elected to that seat. Prior to that, I was with her for 2 years at the Akron Municipal Court. I was her magistrate and judicial attorney there. And prior to that, I was a public defender, I guess for lack of a better term, across 2 counties. And that is how I've spent the last 17 years of my legal career. And I am so lucky to be a candidate for the Ninth District.
That's great. Can you explain to people what a magistrate is and kind of what a magistrate does?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a question I get all the time. A magistrate is somebody who is sworn in by a judge. We take a very serious oath, at least it's an oath I take seriously, to uphold all of the laws of the state of Ohio and the United States of America. And we will often hear cases that like, for example, at my level where I am in the general division, I hear mostly civil matters because we're very limited under the criminal rules as to what we can hear on a criminal case that's a felony. And that's what we do at the general division. At the municipal court, I could do a whole lot more. So I did much of what the judge could do. I'm usually limited by jury trials and certain types of warrants and that type of thing. But I can do a lot of hearings at the county level, as long as they're civil hearings. I do bench trials, I do evidentiary hearings, I do all the pre-trials, and I do a lot of writing.
I bet. I think you mentioned to me when we were having a discussion a little earlier that you actually write jury instructions. And
I do.
And I wonder if maybe you can kind of help folks understand how the judge uses jury instructions and what the importance is for a trial, whether it's a civil or a criminal trial.
Absolutely. And jury instructions are a very important part of a trial process. I'm sure you know this, Justice Brunner, but that's one of the most commonly appealed matters of a course of a trial. And it's really what gives the jury the foundation of what to expect, because I usually do 2 sets of jury instructions. I do a preliminary set and then I do a final set. So that preliminary set is basically the judge explaining to the jurors what to expect over the course of a trial, what the process is, gives a very brief summary of what the case is going to be like, ask questions about a potential juror's qualifications. Of course, most people are qualified, but it's questions like, do you know the parties? Do you have another reason that you might be disqualified as a juror? And then at the end of a trial, it sets out the law that jurors must follow. So they're very, very important aspects of a trial to keep things orderly and to keep people knowledgeable about the law that they must apply in making the decision.
And I think at the end of the trial, some of that is based upon evidentiary rulings that the trial court has made, and which then affects what evidence comes into trial, correct?
Yes, sure. And there's lots of definitions. There are many, many judges who will give the jurors their own copy of the jury instructions so they can see it themselves, because people learn in different ways. Some people are, visual learners. Some people want to hear things, but there are people who need both, and having it in front of them is a good option.
And so the Court of Appeals is really an error correction court that anyone can get an appeal if it's a final appealable order and they file on time and they've paid the filing fee. So So for the Court of Appeals, then you would actually be reviewing, you're like maybe if this were a sports game, the people up in the glass box who are looking at the video and calling down things to the referees on the field. Wouldn't that be, except in this case, the game was over. So you're looking at it from that point. Isn't that correct?
That's a great analogy. I like that analogy. And it's often the court of last resort. As you well know, the Supreme Court of Ohio can accept very few cases. I believe the last number I saw was 3%. And
We're up to
that
almost
means
10 now.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So
Yeah.
in any case, that 10% is still something that most people won't have issues that come before the Supreme Court of Ohio. And so your Ninth District Court of Appeals, all of your district courts of appeals are often the last option that people have when there is an issue with a trial court ruling or a municipal court ruling, but they're really both the same.
Yeah. And you said to me, one of the things that motivated you to run for the Ninth District was because people have so little idea about what this court does, but yet it is oftentimes the last stop for anyone to get a remedy for a problem that they have.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So when I became a new lawyer, it was part of my duties at my first job at the Stark County Public Defender to argue at the courts of appeals, to follow through with my case as I was originally appointed to it. That was a very intimidating process to me as a young lawyer, and I didn't really know what to expect. And many of the folks who had served to me as mentors didn't really know what to tell me to expect. And so I started thinking, if there's this level of mystery around it to me as a licensed attorney, what's the level of mystery that's around it to a member of the public who might not be familiar with court systems? And that felt kind of like a missing piece to me. And it feels like there's a lot of education that could really be put out there in demystification about the appellate process and about the courts of appeals.
So it sounds to me like, being elected, you would understand that it's your role to be a public official, and you would be in the public doing more than just being in the halls of justice doing your job, but helping people understand what you do.
Absolutely. That to me is just as important as hearing the cases. There's really no other way, because it's everybody's court. It's everybody's court, and everybody should have a working understanding of what happens in the halls of a court of appeals, just like I think a lot of people have a working idea of what may happen at a court of common pleas or a municipal court, but there's a little more mystery surrounding an appellate court because there's not as much contact with the public. That just means we have to work a little bit harder to help everyone understand what happens there.
Sure. They don't write crime shows about courts of appeals, do they?
Right. No, they don't.
No. So it sounds like you have a really rich family life too. You're married, a couple of kids.
Yes.
And then I read about some of the volunteer work that you do to provide meals for people. Maybe you can talk about that. I thought it was interesting.
Sure. Well, thank you. It's just kind of where my heart is. Growing up, and you said I have a rich family life. My family is everything to me, was growing up, is now. And I think that most people served in the Ninth District and in the state of Ohio feel the same way. That's really the bedrock of who you become. And growing up, food was love. My mother is an excellent cook and still is today. And it was just the way we spent our time together. We always ate at the table. So I don't discount the power of having a hot meal provided by somebody who prepared it with love. And of course, time is always an issue, but I do my very, very best to have dinner with my family when I can and provide dinner. It's usually a dinner meal that I provide to people who may not have those same benefits. So one of the places that I provide meals through is Rehab Ministries here up in Summit County. That is an agency that helps provide support to people who are survivors of human trafficking. That was an agency I first had contact with when I worked at the Summit County Legal Defender's Office. I was assigned to the juvenile court, and I helped Judge Linda Tucci Teodosio start that program. I was her first defense attorney. And to say it made an impact on me is a very big understatement. It's a huge issue in the state of Ohio and something that just really stays with you. So when I changed my career to work with Judge Michael over at the municipal court, I kept that aspect of life and continued providing meals by dropping them at one of the agency buildings and providing it to the minors who come to that facility.
So, we hear about human trafficking a lot. And sometimes I think when people hear about it a lot, they just sort of put it in a category and think, okay, that's human trafficking. But what is it really? I mean, what does Judge Teodosio's court deal with human trafficking? Create a picture for us.
Sure. At the time that the program started, it was just trying to recognize what was happening. There are a lot of people who expect that human trafficking looks like the movie Taken, and it does not. In my experience, it's just often something that somebody finds themselves involved in or gets into a situation that leads to that. And the court was really there to provide support and to be in compliance with the Safe Harbor statute, which provides the ability to expunge a record after certain criteria are met. The purpose, I think, mostly was to let a lot of the people who were involved in the court know that they were not alone, that this was not something that was as shameful as they may have felt, but that they were loved and that they were going to be given support and helped in whatever way they needed help.
So these were people who may have committed crimes, but they were a result of their situation where they were being taken advantage of by another person in a human trafficking situation. Would that help the way to understand that?
Yes, there were some participants that did that, and then there were some participants who were just unfortunately involved in those circumstances, and they were provided support, even if they weren't eligible to have their, the juvenile record handled in a way that was consistent with the Safe Harbor statute. There was just a lot of wraparound services, a lot of people who were there to provide the support and I guess knowledge of what it all meant and where to go from there.
That's fantastic. I know when I started and presided over a drug court many years ago in the Franklin County Common Pleas Court, I think our greatest successes happened when we could provide the wraparound services so that when a person was in the system because of, in this case, it was drugs or alcohol or in mental health or a combination of those things, if we could sort of soften the triggers that could push them back into that way of life, that's why the wraparound services work the best.
Absolutely. And I think it's also a newer aspect, and one I'm very, very pleased to see on the bench, is that we as judges and magistrates are all willing to recognize that there are a lot of circumstances and triggers that we don't even know about, and just to kind of keep our eyes and our minds open to the idea that there are things that, at least in my world, like I said, I was very well loved as a child. I'm very lucky that that was the case. I recognize that that's not everybody's childhood. And so I just try to keep an open mind that I might be meeting someone on a very difficult day for them, or they might not have some of the same things that I was provided. And that's a very big part of, I guess, listening to your audience and recognizing what a case as a whole and a person as a whole that's in front of you.
So you've got all this work, as they would say, in the trenches of where a case will start. And so you're going to take this to the Court of Appeals. And do you see this as helping to be able to inform your judgment on those cases? Obviously, yes. You'll follow the law, but...
Right. And that's what I say when I speak to people is your judges are all going to tell you that they are going to be fair and impartial, and they should, because that is what we are required to do. But yes, the idea of what fair and impartial might mean to an individual, I think is possibly going to be different based on your career and that type of thing. But this work, as you call it, in the trenches, is very humbling. It helps you recognize that you don't know as much as you think you do. And even of what you think you do, it's not necessarily going to be the same the next day or to the next person. And just keeping your mind open that everyone is coming from a different place always, and that there's always a way to keep your mind open and listen, to really, really listen, is going to be the biggest thing that I think is important to my life as an appellate judge if I happen to win that seat.
That's wonderful. So is there anything that you think people would be interested in knowing about you that they just wouldn't guess by reading your bio?
Sure. One of the most interesting things that I think, and that I'm the most proud of, is that I'm a first-generation college graduate. What that means is that neither of my parents had a lot of the opportunities that they were able to work hard to provide to me. As I mentioned when we were chatting before, my father passed away when I was a teenager. I was 2 weeks shy of 17. He had a massive heart attack. We did not know he had heart problems until he passed away. But that definitely creates a different situation for you. And for me, it just meant that I had to balance those things a little bit more differently, keeping care of the family while being away, because I left home. I grew up in the Akron area, a little suburb that the locals call Manchester. I believe it's called the city of New Franklin, but Manchester is the local school district and where I went. So that's what people call it. And I went down to Denison University, which is in Granville. So it's about a 2 hour and 20-minute drive. I would often come home just to kind of see how things were at home, but financial assistance was not available to me through my family. So I worked often 3 jobs during my college career to help make up the bit that I was not given in scholarships to continue going to Denison, which is a private school. So that was a significant bit. I'm very proud of that hard work that I put in. I really, really wanted to be a lawyer. And I made sure that that was going to be part of my future, even if it meant being uncomfortable in certain areas of life. And I know a lot of people understand that message. A lot of people working should know that their judges understand what that struggle can be like. And I certainly do.
Very admirable. Well,
Thank you.
I am so appreciative of your taking the time to share a little bit about yourself and your candidacy for the Ninth District Court of Appeals. For those of you watching, this is Erica Voorhees, who will be on the ballot for the Ninth District Court of Appeals in Summit counties, Medina County, Summit, Medina, Wayne, and Lorain counties. It's not the whole counties in all of those, but many of you will see her on the ballot there. And you can refer back to this when it comes time to make your decisions. This gives you a chance to get to really know this candidate for office. And I'm thrilled that I got to know you better today too, Erica. Thank you. Thank you so much. So this has been Achieving Justice with Justice Jennifer Brunner of the Ohio Supreme Court. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.